necessarily about reaching retirement, but it's really about how to build wealth fast, right? And of course, when you build wealth fast, it gives you a lot of options, one of which being financial freedom or early retirement. And how anyone at any level can become financially free in 5 to 10 years or less is what we can go over tonight. And then obviously, like I tell people, let's say that you're on track. Well, I'll ask you here in a second, and then we can go over that. Make sure you stick around to the end. We're going to be on here for about 45 minutes. I can promise you, once we get going, you're going to be really glad that you're here. And it's going to be a really valuable presentation at the end. I'm going to give away my ebook, give away my rental property calculator for those watching live. So I'll let you know how to get that. So make sure you hang around. And then obviously at the end, we'll be opening the floor for questions and answers. If you guys have any sort of question or whatever, in the meantime, you can throw in the Q&A, but I'll more than likely answer it at the end just because, I'll probably answer it as we go. So I want to know a little bit more about you. If you guys want to pick out one of these questions, I want to hear kind of from you guys just so we know where we're at, where our mindset's at. There's no right or wrong answer to this. I just want to know kind of what you guys think. At what age, or do you guys think that, or what have you been told maybe that age is that retirement's supposed to occur at? So go ahead and throw that in the chat. Just put whatever, maybe let me know what's your current timeline to retirement and what's your biggest hurdle, right? So you don't necessarily have to answer all three, but pick out one of those and I want to read them real quick. That way I kind of know where our head's at, what kind of, where everybody's at and all that kind of stuff. So what age is retirement supposed to be? What is maybe your current timeline to retirement? As far as do you think that you're on track to retire in the next 40 years, 20 years, or you have no idea? That's okay too. And then what do you think is your biggest hurdle to retiring early? And it might be debt payoff. It might be, your credit. It might be, not making enough money. It might be not understanding stocks and real estate. It might be a dead-end job, right? So it might be that you don't have maybe a group of people around you that, support you, right? Or that are doing the same thing. You might not have a mentor. So all things like that. So I just want to read some of your thoughts there. So go ahead and throw that in the chat real quick. And then I will go ahead and do that. And then of course we'll, if there's anything that looks like a question that I'll dive deeper into, I'll do that near the end, but just wanted to see what you got, where your head's at with everything. So Ken said, I'd like to learn more about debt and raising my credit score. We can definitely talk about that. That's something I focus on too is, you have money coming in every month, right? And it has to go to expenses, some to paying off debt, some to saving, and some to investing, which we'll talk about here in a second. And so it's really about building the blueprint of knowing where is each extra dollar going and why, in accordance with your goals. Retirement for Jacob said retirement is supposed to be at 65, but will not happen for most of my generation. So Jacob, I can tell you've been reading my posts because my post, I think yesterday or the day before, which it's crazy when you word it like this, but it's facts, is I think 65% of Americans, 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And so another way of saying that is 70% of Americans are not investing at all whatsoever, right? Because you're living paycheck to paycheck, dollar comes in, dollar goes out. And if you're not investing, how are you supposed to retire, right? Like a retirement comes from building up a stock portfolio, building up a real estate portfolio, something along those lines. And so if 70% is not investing, that means 70% is on track to not retire unless there's some sort of magical, Social Security is not, but $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month, typically in a lot of situations. So that's not going to help you, retire in a lot of cases. So it's scary, but if you know what you're doing and you're educated and you've got the right mentor and, group of people around you, there's no reason why you can't retire at 55 or 50 or 40, depending on how old you are and where you're at. Kate said paying off debt, raising income. Corinne said learn more about creating multiple streams of passive income. Jacob said just now starting to make enough money to do things with, so I'm here for the investment. Awesome. You're in the right place. You're in a great spot, it sounds like right now. Even 27, you might feel like, I'm like behind, at least I hear that from other people that are around that age. But, the good news is you're so far ahead of the game. You're so far ahead of the average person. And, doing what you're doing right now is going to allow you to get even further and further ahead. And, at 27 years old, even starting with $0 and no salary, there's still no reason why you shouldn't be able to retire by 45. And it sounds like you're probably in a much even better situation than that. So we'll talk about that tonight too. Chris said consistency. Consistency is definitely a big thing. And I think that all comes down to one, education, understanding what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how to do it, and creating a blueprint and plan of what you need to do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis when it comes to finances, which is something that I talk about a lot. So that all you have to do is stick to the script in a sense, right? Most people are just kind of winging it. And that's where we get in trouble, right? If we are working out and we don't create workout plans, we don't track our calories, we don't track our weight, we don't track our muscle mass, we don't track our, if we're taking our protein every day and things like that, then, there's a chance we get in shape, but not a good one, right? Becky said, I've always been told to retire close to 65, but I was hoping to retire at 55. The problem is that I'm 46, a teacher, and have already maxed out how much I can earning my school district, need help finding more another income. So I've worked with teachers too in the past in similar scenarios, and we can definitely talk about some ways to do that. I think that there's a lot of opportunities for teachers. It's just getting a little bit of creative with your skill set of teaching and the subjects that you're good at, and learning either how to tack something onto what you're already doing, or pivoting into some sort of education that is not controlled by the public school system or governments, or like all that kind of stuff. So we can talk about that. Maria said 65 is what everyone thinks. I'd be happy if I could retire at 50, but right now making $1,500 a month, right? So yeah, we'll talk about raising our income. Steven said current timeline is 68. Yeah, I don't know how old you are, Steven, but I know that we can definitely make that a lot better. Oh, you said 37 right now. Yeah, so I mean, no doubt. I mean, that's what, 31 years. Yeah, Steven, we're gonna help you out a lot here tonight. Allie, I'm on track, but do not want to stay in my current career. So living biggest hurdle is definitely not having a mentor. Yeah, I mean, not having a mentor is, I think, for me and everything I do in my business, I've got mentors that, and unfortunately business coaches are extremely expensive because I guess it's business, but I spend thousands of dollars. I've spent thousands of dollars on real estate masterminds. I've spent thousands of dollars on, you name it, right? Learning over the course of time. And that wasn't always money that I had, in the very beginning. It was more so, making a little bit of money, keeping my expenses low, and trying to invest into more education, more mentorship, raising my income potential, things like that. But there's a lot of ways to find mentors as well that maybe don't cost money, but that would just be, more so networking, things like that. Excuse me. So I'm going to read these last two. I'm going to get going. I'm glad that you guys are giving me all this information because it helps me out a lot. Chris said, behind, I'm 43, right? So that was Jacob that was saying earlier, but I mean, regardless, and we'll talk about this in a second. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care what age you are. I don't care what you like doing for fun. This isn't about any of that stuff, right? This is about, regardless of who you are, meeting you are, where you're at, and getting you in a much better situation than you would if you were never here, right? So I think a lot of people get caught up in their past or their story or their age, right? And I tell people age is one where maybe they're 45 years old and they feel like they're behind, and and I'm like, and they're like, what's the point? I'm like, all right, well, let's pan this out, right? You're 45 years old. How old do you expect to be like before you pass away? And they're like, well, probably 80, 90. And I'm like, all right, 90. Okay, let's do the math. So basically you've got a whole second life, right? Like you've got a whole nother 45 years, to redo it if you need to, right? And so I think when you span it out over the long haul and learn the right things that you need to do and start taking action on them, your life can change immensely in 5 to 10 years. And even if you don't reach financial freedom in 5 to 10 years, it's not an all or nothing game, right? Money affords you opportunities and flexibility along the way. It could be leaving a job. It could be leaving a toxic relationship. It could be leaving a toxic work culture. It could be going to see your parents more. It could be taking that, vacation that you've always wanted to take, or, whatever, right? There's, things that money allows you to do along the way. And it's not just sacrificing until you reach retirement. Looking for a structure to retire in 15 years, live off husband's income Mine's for saving, investing, and raising equity. That's awesome. Elise, or I think it's Elise. However, we have our first baby, and I'm sure that'll affect the plan. Yeah, so we'll talk about that as well. It's a big thing. The who, what, when, where, and why, and the who is big, especially when kids are along the way. Freddie, awesome, you're in the right place. Angel, you're 23 years old. Look, we were talking earlier about 43 and 45 and 50 years old. I want you guys to all know that you're in the right place, right? And you've got a lot of time. And I think we get so caught up in what our life looks right now that it's hard to imagine how it could be different. But it's just about getting around people that live a different life, or live the life maybe that you want to live, or have gotten to a step that you want to get to, learning from them, and then allowing that, learning how they got there. And then once you know what they've done, how they did it, those right there give you the biggest wealth building secret weapon of all time. And that is hope. Hope is the end all be all of any sort of change, right? I think a lot of people, going back to, let's say you want to exercise, lose weight, whatever, a lot of people give up because they go to the gym a few times, they don't see any results, but they don't give up because they don't see results. They give up because they lost hope. They don't think that there's a possibility of a positive change. So you have to get around people and expose yourself to people and experiences that, like for me, I'm going to tell you guys my story, and there's going to be similarities in our stories and differences in our stories. But you guys are going to hear my story and some other stories tonight, and you shouldn't be like, hey, I have to judge myself by his story. But what I want you to do is, hey, that's a really awesome story. He's a guy. He's not any smarter than me. He's not any. He's definitely not any better looking than I am. He's not any more special than I am. And if he did it, I respect him, hopefully. But I can do that too, right? So that's how I want you guys to look at it. So we're gonna get into it tonight. So, and I already talked about some false and limiting beliefs, but again, a lot of people say financial freedom takes 30 to 40 years of working to reach. That's just not true. We'll talk about why. A lot of people think you need to have $5, 10, $15 million to retire or to become financially free. That's not true either. We'll talk about why that is. And then again, last one, I just talked about financial freedoms for someone else besides me. There's too much work involved. They don't have enough time. It's too hard. It's too complicated. It simply comes down to learning the system and putting into action consistently over long haul. So exactly what we just talked about, building a system, being consistent, right? That's it, right? So what I want you guys rhetorically to kind of just imagine, right? Get yourself in the right mind space. What would it look like if you could make a few changes to your current day-to-day life, and as a result, end up retiring maybe 5 years, 10 years, 20 years earlier with millions of dollars? What would life be like if you were able to make more money and invest that money into assets that produce income, and that income from those assets paid all or most of your bills for you? And the last one I want you to do is, what would life be like if you were able to quit your job and work on what you want to work on, where you want to work on it, when you want to work on it, with who you want to work on it, right? So I want to give you a second while I scroll to the next slide to just kind of think about that. Imagine a lot, kind of take you to a positive place, right? And I don't want you to be thinking, oh, well, why, that's too manifesty. That's the person inside you that doesn't want you to do great things, right? We've all got it. I call that person my monkey mind, right? And once you realize that thing where the first thing when somebody says something positive, hey, imagine your life being better. Imagine you being wealthy. And that first little thing, you might have already heard it in your mind go, no, that's not true. That's not possible. You can't do that. You're not good enough, right? I still have that in my mind, right? Even at this point, right? So we've got to become aware of it, right? We've got to understand that that's not who we are. That's not our identity. That is a thought, right? Thoughts go in and out of our heads. I can have any thought that I want at any given time. And over time, I can be aware of that and replace enough thoughts to where positive thoughts take over my life more than negative thoughts. The more positive thoughts that you can make over negative, the better your life's going to be. It's science. And that's a big thing that doesn't have anything to do with money that I think will help out a lot. It's something that I work on a lot. So like I said, it's very possible. Let's take Corey, for example. So Corey's somebody that I worked with, the beginning of, I guess, mid last year. So you can see the before and after on the right, but we're talking about raising income, lowering expenses, investing more, and then just what these are small changes, but they made massive, massive differences over the course of his lifetime just in 6 months. Why? So Corey was a nurse. We talked about, nurse is something where he's like, well, I can't really make any more money because a nurse is a nurse, right? I have a full-time job. They pay me a salary, right? There's no commission. And so I was like, well, you're young, you're single, right? So it's about finding, parts of his life that are maybe advantageous for him making more money. And so I was like, what about travel nursing, right? So he did travel nursing. So he makes $85,000. So he makes $25,000 more per year doing travel nursing. He enjoys the travel. He's young, he's single, it works for him. It might not be the long-term plan forever, but for now it's helping him save and invest a ton more money. He bought his first house. And so what he did is he did what's called house hacking, where you buy he bought a 4-unit property and he lives in 1 unit and then he rents out the other 3. And while he's traveling, he rents out the 4th unit too. So it's kind of a way to, buy a house and spend no money on rent, right? Because he's living in 1 unit most of the time. And the rent from the other 3 units of people or friends that he lives with, they pay the rent, and that goes and pays his mortgage, his property taxes, insurance, et cetera, right? So he's making more money. He's now saving $1,500 a month extra in rent. And so that's now allowing him to go from $5,000 a year in investing money or cash flow to $48,000, which is an insane amount of money, right? To be able to invest per year. That's $4,000 per month. But as you can see, he doesn't make an insane amount of money, right? $85,000 is very doable for a lot of the population, right? And again, maybe there's kids, or maybe you live in a high cost of living area, maybe blah, 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 whatever, right? But again, this is just an example. So for him, he went from, if he invested $5,000 a year for 20 years, that would leave him with about $274,000. And I'll show you how I got that a little bit later. But now he's investing $48,000 a month, or a year, sorry, that'd be crazy, a year. And that would get him to about $3 million over the course of 20 years. And he actually just bought his second rental property. And so this is all just from making a few changes to his strategy, right? And so you pan this out again over a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. He's probably going to buy more rental properties and get there even sooner, right? So this is Corey. This is when he bought, I think, the first one. Hey, I'm closing. He sent me the message on Instagram. And then randomly out of nowhere, I hadn't talked to him in a couple months. And he's like, hey, man, I just bought a second rental property. I'm like, what do you mean? Tell me about it. Like, why didn't you tell me about this prior? Just because mostly with everybody, all my students and stuff, I, keep up with them, and they definitely let me know when something like this happens. But, and then Christina, again, is just somebody else that I worked with. And she said, hey, with taking the right steps, retiring in 10 years seems much more doable now than it did before. And now see how more easily attainable that is, right? Which is what we're trying to do today, right? It's just talk about the 3 main ways that there are to reach financial freedom in the quickest amount of time possible. And then I'm going to talk about which I think is best for you. So real quick, I don't want to spend a lot of time on me. I know a lot of you guys follow me on Instagram or Twitter, so you probably heard my story, but just want to give you a little background. I got my bachelor's degree in finance from UCF in Orlando, which was what I was talking about earlier. But it's funny because 98% of what I know about finance is not from that degree, ironically, which is good because that means you don't need a degree in finance in order to build wealth fast. I became a financially free millionaire, which I'll kind of define what that is, at 27 years old. My net worth now is, depending on what the stock market's doing, of course, is somewhere in the ballpark of $1.5 million. And I retired from corporate America forever at 28 years old. So now I'm 29. I actually just turned 30 a couple of days ago. So I'm a real estate investor with a primary home, and also, I had a primary home. I just sold that as well to move to a new town, which is a part of my story as well, which I'll share. And then I also own 7 rental units. I've got 10 plus sources of income between, consulting, courses, programs, all the rental properties, stocks, dividends, covered calls. I mean, you name it, there's money coming in from a lot of different places. And, 7, 8 years ago, I had 1 income source. And before that, I had 0 income sources, right? So this all kind of came from nothing, which I'll talk about on the next slide. But I've got near $1 million invested in the stock market. And of course, you guys know me from being the CEO or owner of Defining Wealth. I started a couple of years ago during COVID, basically just to help provide the education that it should be in schools, but it's just not in the curriculum when it comes to everything that we've gone over tonight: personal finance, debt, credit, savings, investing, emergency funds, stocks, real estate, business, right? Which is all incredibly important in every human being's life, but it's just not taught, right? So how did I get there? Well, the important things I want to talk about first is I didn't grow up. I grew up in a loving home, which I think is the best privilege, I guess, that someone could have. But we weren't talking about money, right? It wasn't a situation where my parents were like, "Hey, we bought a house for you," or which would be cool, or "Hey, here's how the stock market works," right? I didn't know anything at all until I went to college and started learning about finance. But I had good parents that loved me, right? So I don't want to say like, I want to make that very clear, which again, I think is the best thing you can do as a parent is love your child and be there for them. I think just back then, it's getting a little bit better now, but back then you just didn't talk about these things, right? You didn't talk about how much mom made, how much dad. I still don't know how much my parents made growing up, right? Never really asked. Right? You don't talk about it. You don't talk about the budget. You don't talk about, we didn't talk about savings or investing or anything really. I got good grades, which helped me out a bunch, right? I just worked really hard. And I was able to graduate debt free, which was a big deal, from college, from getting scholarships and also working jobs in school. And then I got to the real world. I started off making $30,000 a year. And the problem was that I pretty much knew within about 10 minutes of being in the real world that I'm like, wow, I'm waking up at 6 a.m., maybe trying to get a workout in, maybe trying to read. Then I got to drive an hour to work. I got to work from 9, really at the beginning from 8 to 6 is what I worked, maybe more. And then I would drive an hour home to 7. And then from 7 to 10, I would basically shower, eat, maybe watch one episode of Netflix. I'm like, there's no way this is it, right? There's no way that this is what I'm doing. And maybe if I enjoyed what I was doing more on a daily basis, that might've been a little bit different. But for me, I was like, this isn't it, right? And so the problem is when I was young, right, in college or before that, I had all the time in the world, right? But I didn't have any money, right? And so you're kind of limited on what you can do, right? And then when I got into the real world, I had money, right? But I didn't have any time to do anything with it, right? So I was like, this kind of sucks too. So what I did, over the course of time, and this is 8-9 years, right? And broken down into one slide. But in the beginning, I focused on first and foremost developing a spending plan and budget to make sure I kept my expenses low so that it gave me time to raise my income. I focused on raising that income through my mostly commission-based sales job from 30,000. The first year, I think I made 60, and then I made 100, then 150, then 200, then 250, then 300 by the time I left, right? So, but again, that was a risk that I took because I could have made $0 and had to get another job. But because I kept my expenses low, I was able to work a job that only paid me $30,000 a year, in that first little bit. Because my expenses were so low, right? So when you keep your expenses low, it creates more room for you to take maybe some more aggressive type risks in order to raise your income if that's something that you want to do. I immediately began investing in the stock market. Why? Because it was much easier than real estate. I didn't know about real estate. And so I got started immediately in that. Then I started buying real estate when I was 25, 26, right? Bought real estate for a few years. And I know I'm kind of fast forwarding through all this and we can dive into it. But again, I just want to kind of show you the path and let you know like, hey, it's nothing really crazy that happened. It's just all these things happen at once, right? So I'm continuing for 8 years, keeping my expenses low, raising my income for 8 years, investing in the stock market for 8 years, buying real estate for 5-6 years, and then eventually building a business, right? And so what I learned, where that led me and why that's important is, I don't know what I just did. Oh, we're back. What I learned is that you really need a system, right? You really need a system in order to get to where you're trying to get to. And again, this is kind of where it left me now, where, I wake up when I want, I go to sleep when I want, I hang out with my family when I want. I just, 3 weeks ago, I drove down on a Tuesday in the middle of the week, took off pretty much the rest of the week, spent it with my mom. My mom's getting older. Things like that. I think about when I used to work, I didn't take off much time, to be honest. And I realize now how much of my time was wasted in a sense of working, right? And it's crazy because you get so caught up in it, and it doesn't mean you're not supposed to have a job, but you kind of forget to be cognizant of how much time is passing you by, and especially how that affects the people around you. And so for me, you know, getting to this point this last year, it's been a very eye-opening year to, you know, really just start to kind of start building my life into what I want it to be, which I think is an opportunity all that you guys here have the ability as well. So we're going to talk about the flow of money tonight, right? So income, you know, mostly goes to wealth limiting things for most people. That's why most people live paycheck to paycheck. Every dollar goes to expenses or it goes to debt. And we want to focus on how do we limit this as much as possible so that we can focus on getting as much money as possible into savings for protection and then mostly into investing. Now, when we're investing, you know, the idea of financial independence, right, is to get money working in the stock market, business, and real estate. Or, you know, it doesn't have to be necessarily all three, but some sort of combination, right? So that what we can do is build up appreciation and dividends from the stock market, revenue from a business, if that's what you decide to do. And then real estate, you make money a lot of different ways, which we'll go over tonight. But the idea is you're pouring money from your job into these investments into stocks, real estate, and or business. And these things are creating their own money, right? So you're making money. When, you know, I started investing in the stock market, this was making money, this was making money, and now this is making money. So I got to the point last year where I'm like, well, this is making money, this is making money, this is making money. And now I can take the income out of this previous slide. And this whole situation still operates, right? Without me needing that job that I necessarily didn't want to work, right? So that's kind of what financial independence is. So I want you guys to throw in the chat, retirement is not an age, retirement is a blank. So I want to hear what you think. And then we'll talk about it here in a second. I want to give you guys a second. And also I'm going to take a drink before I spontaneously combust. I get excited and I forget to take breaks. But I really love, I just love going over this stuff. And obviously I hope you guys can sense that. Ooh, I'll tell you what, this Body Armor strawberry banana might be the best thing on earth. I used to work for them in college, actually. It's a fun job. You went into Costco's, and basically it was when no one knew what Body Armor was. It was like the first 2 months it was open, and you had to sell it to people that never had heard of it, which is a really great job because it's like just pure communication and sales. And I tried to work for them, and then they hired somebody else. Jerks. But I mean, now they're killing it. Freddie said a number, Maria system, an age, not an age, it's a mindset, lifestyle, thought process. Yeah. So Brad's on pace right now. So it's a number, and even more specifically, as you can see from the slide here, it's a number, right? And it is a lifestyle, and it is all those things that you mentioned as well. But it comes down to a number. And so there's a lot of different ways that we can talk about retiring, whether it's stocks, real estate, or business. The stock market gives us a really cool way to come up with that number. And it's as a result of what's called the Trinity study. The Trinity study was a study done by a group of economists, people who study the economy. And they came up with what's called the 4% rule. And so what they basically did is they said, hey, if we built up a portfolio, let's say it's $2 million, how much could we take out of that portfolio per year and have a 0 or near 0% chance of running out of money over the course of 30 years? And so normally you would say, well, and what they came up with was 4%. That was the rule that was called the safe withdrawal rate. And so you might say, well, if you took out 4% every year, you'd run out in 25 years. But the reason why you wouldn't is because that money is also growing, right? So it's not just a savings account that you're dwindling down. You have that money invested, and then you're selling off assets once you get to your number, right? So the idea is you get to your number, and I'll tell you how to figure that out here in a second. And then once you get there, then you're you're what's called financially independent. You'd be able to retire, et cetera, right? That's what people talk about, having enough for retirement. So it would be your annual expenses multiplied by 25. And so let's say your annual expenses are $50,000 a year. You would divide that by 4%, which is the 4% rule. Or you can multiply it by 25. It's the same. The way fractions work, it just gives you the same number. And so that means you need $1.25 million, in order to be able to, become financially free or financially independent. Now, there's that systems, or that formula is not necessarily perfect, and we can talk about a lot of those ways. But what I do think it is an incredible way to simplify the complexity of what the number probably actually is, right? But it's probably pretty close. It's a great ballpark estimate, and it's a good way to kind of get you on track. And so what you can do, and you might be like 1.25 million, it'll take me forever to reach that, right? So what I want to talk about is compound interest, which a lot of you guys are probably familiar with. But let's say that we invest $1,500 a month, and I'm going to do for 40 years, right? And we can scale it back to see when we reach it. But in the stock market, you would, typically expect 9 to 11% per year on average over the long haul. Obviously, we'll factor inflation into that as well. And so we can use a smaller number, 7, 8%, something like that is a little bit more conservative. But what we can do is, again, $1,500 a month, whether you are investing that or not right now, I want you to look at that number as reasonable, because it is, right? $1,500 per month is what? 3,000 times 6, that's $18,000 a year, right? So if you were making $80,000, right, that means you could spend $62,000 a year, which is $5,000 a month, and still be able to invest $1,500 a month, right? So it's reasonable, right? Whether we're there or not is a different story. And if you're not there, we can get you there. And if you are there, we can get you higher than that, right? But I just want to kind of use it as a basis, right? And of course, this will get us to where, again, if our typical retirement, let's say, is 40, 45 years, we're on pace. In this situation, we would be looking at reaching our number in about 24 or 25 years, right? So again, what I want you to take away from this is we started off, retiring 40 years from now. Now we've just cut off 15 years just by being able to invest $1,500 per month, right? And again, I understand you might be like, well, that's too much. I don't have anything right now. But again, you can work up to it, and it is reasonable. And again, that could take off 15 years just by understanding compound interest. And that's what this is, right? The amount that you actually invested is this bottom number, but the curve here, and the reason why it curves is because you're experiencing compound interest, which is the idea that your money not only is going to grow by the amount that you're contributing, but it's also going to be the amount that you have been investing, and your portfolio value is going to continue to grow and grow. So an example of that might be, again, if we take, 260,000 right down here, like if that goes up by, let's say 10%, that would be $26,000 it would go up by. But when your portfolio has gone up and up and up, now, again, that back then your portfolio was going up by what? $26,000 per year on average. Once we get up to this part, $2.8 million, if that went up by 10% per year, I'm just going to use that number because it's a little bit easier to do off the top of my head. That means it was not $26,000. That means it's $280,000 that your portfolio would be going up by on average at that time, because you're experiencing that compound interest, right? So that's the really cool thing about the stock market. And again, we're talking about, all this is after taxes. When I was talking about, like, if you made, $85,000 and you were spending $62,000, or the example that I'd given, after taxes, just because it's easier and I don't know what taxes you pay and stuff like that. So, but that is with the stock market, right? And so, go back to the second way, right, to retire or become financially free is through real estate. Real estate, unfortunately, is not as pretty of a number, right? With stocks, like I said, it comes down to, of course, building the right portfolio, investing in the right accounts, and all that kind of stuff. With real estate, it's not as much of a pretty number. It's more so, hey, I need that $50,000, $60,000 per year. So what that means is I need to be cash flowing $5,000 per month. And so how many properties do you need in order to cash flow $5,000, $6,000 per month, or whatever the case is, right? And so for some people, that might be 2 Airbnbs, right? Depending on where it is and that kind of stuff. It might be 5, 7 long-term rentals. But the cool thing about real estate, right, is that, let's say it's 10 properties and 10 properties equal $4 million. And you're like, well, how am I ever going to come up with $4 million? Well, first of all, you never have to put down more than 20%. A lot of times you might not even have to put down that much, right? So worst case scenario, it's $800,000, which you might still be like, well, over the course of time, that's still going to take a lot to invest. But the cool thing about real estate is, let's say you have your job, right? And then you buy a rental property, and then you're getting maybe raises or your commission's going up or whatever at your job, right? And then you also have the rental property. And so what you're able to do is take the money from the rental property and take the money from your income from your job and use that to buy the second one, right? So now you have income coming in from the second property, first property, and your job. And so that's more money than you had before. And now you're able to buy the third one a little bit faster, right? So, and so on and so on, right? So the real estate is helping you buy more real estate as you go. So how do you make money with the real estate? You make it in 5 different ways. The first way is cash flow, which is the monthly rent minus all the monthly expenses, which we'll talk about what those are. Appreciation plus leverage. And so appreciation is the idea that an asset's going to go up in value over the course of time. So an example might be, if Amazon's at $100 and it goes up to $120, right? You could sell that for $120 and you would get that $20 gain or whatever. So the stock market typically goes up by 7 to 11% per year on average. Real estate only goes up by 3%. But what most people miss is that it's appreciation plus leverage. And what I mean by that is that you own, I'll give you an example. Let's say that you put $10,000 down on a $200,000 home, right? So that would be 5% down, and maybe you're living in it, and it's a house hack, which is an example I gave earlier. And so in this case, that house goes up by 3% per year, right? So $200,000 house goes up to $206,000 per year. That's 3% gain. Now let's look at your return. You get a $6,000 gain divided by how much money you put into the property. It was 6,000 divided by 10,000. So that's actually a 60% gain when we look at appreciation and factor in that leverage. Why? Because if you sell the property, the bank doesn't want any of the extra money that you gain. They just want you to pay your monthly payment, because a portion of that goes to paying interest to them every month, which is how they make their money. But the crazy thing is, and I'll give a crazy example to highlight my point. If you had a $300,000 house and you sold it for $600,000 and the bank owned 90% of it, the bank wouldn't go, hey, I want 90% of that extra $300,000 that you just made because I own 90% of the house, right? It just doesn't happen, right? Which blew my mind the first time I fully understood that with real estate, because you get 100% of the appreciation, even though you don't own anywhere near 100% of the house, at least not in the beginning. So that's a really awesome part about real estate. Third is equity capture, which is just the idea that in real estate, you can buy properties for less than their value, right? I can't go to the stock market and say, hey, Amazon's $100, but I'm going to buy it from you for 80. People will be like, no, thanks, right? But with real estate, you can find people that maybe they bought a house 30, 40 years ago and they just want to get rid of it, right? And they're okay with taking less money for it or whatever the case is. Things like that, right? So that would be equity capture, right? Principal pay down is the idea that every month money comes in from your rent that you're collecting from tenants, and a portion of that goes to pay down your loan. So the house is appreciating in value, you're paying down your loan, and the equity in between is going to your net worth, and so you're gaining there as well. And the last way is tax advantages, which I won't go into all of that, but it's another big way that people make a ton of money through real estate, through tax advantages. So with this, I want to just give you an idea of some numbers. Again, I don't want you to say, well, I don't have a house like that in my neighborhood or or whatever. I want you to understand just the numbers and the percentages and the principles of kind of how all this works so that you can wrap your head around it, right? And this is actually pretty similar to my first property that I bought. Of course, it was many years ago, but let's say we have a home valued at $160,000, and let's say we're able to buy it for $10,000 less than what it's worth. The money down would be probably a little bit less than this, but 20% down plus maybe some closing costs. So we'll say $34,000. The monthly rent that we're expecting is 3 units, $800-ish a piece, right? Let's say it's a triplex, so that's about $2,500. Monthly expenses, which is property tax, insurance, maintenance, property manager, utilities, etc., be about $1,500 a month. And that would leave us with $1,000 in cash flow at the end of the month for this particular property, the way that it's set up. So if we look at our returns, right, okay, how do we make money with this? Equity capture, again, right? I'm highlighting all the ones from the previous slide. right? We made $10,000 here because as soon as we bought it, the real value of it's $160,000. So we captured some equity on the front end by getting a good deal. Appreciation. So we would expect this to go up by 3% per year in the first year. But again, if you look at $4,800 that it went up in value divided by the amount we put down, that's actually more like a 14% return, which of course we're talking about stock market being 7 to 10. Cash flow, right, would be $12,000. In this case, $1,000 times 12. And then principal pay down, $1,900 ish is about what that would be. So that would be the loan balance decreasing. And then you would also get some tax savings, and that really depends on who you are, what your general situation is with your taxes. But, depreciation would probably be a big one that you would, take off, which would save you about $1,100, maybe even a little bit more on your taxes. So we're going to take the from the slide before this right here is just going to move to the left. And then we're just going to break it down further so we fully understand this. I'm going to go over 2 or 3 slides in a row here. The total money we spent was $34,000. Our total return was about $30,000 if we add in all of these numbers up front. But a lot of times we want to look at, okay, well, a lot of these returns are great. They all go into our net worth, but we want to look at how much of these are liquid, right? How much of this is cash, right? Because if a house goes up in value, you have to wait until you sell it or refinance it to be able to access that. Same thing with equity capture, same thing with principal pay down, right? So we want to look, a cash on cash return is a very important return when it comes to real estate. And so we're going to do our cash flow per year divided by the cash that we put into the deal, right? So that's a 34% return on our investment, which sounds incredibly high. And the reason why it's incredibly high is because that's the reason why people invest in real estate, right? If real estate requires much more work, right? It's not all pros. There's risks and effort involved. But if real estate returned the same that the stock market did, no one would invest in real estate because it does require more work. Why do people invest in real estate? Because you can make more money if it's done correctly, right? And you put in the right time and effort and build the right relationships. So 86% return on investment total when we add in all of these, which again sounds insane, right? But all kind of documented here on the left as to how we got to that number. And again, you're buying a $160,000 asset, but you're only paying $34,000 for it, but you're still experiencing the full depreciation, the full principal pay down, the full equity capture, and the full appreciation of that asset, even though you don't own but 20% of it, right? And the cash flow and things like that, right? So let's span that out over the course of time. My rule is if it's great when you run the numbers in year one, it should only get better and better and better over the course of time, and we'll look at why. So look, you bought this house for 160 grand. The house, we're going to say it's going to go up 3% per year. Rent is going to go up by about the same. And the cool part is if you get a fixed rate mortgage, which you always should, your payment is going to stay the same for 30 years, right? So that means if your mortgage is, at a 2% rate, it's always going to be at a 2% rate for 30 years. Now your property taxes and insurance and other things like that might go up, but your principal and interest on the loan itself will stay the same, which allows the rent to go up, but your mortgage payment to stay the same, and you make more and more and more money over the course of time. So after year 5, instead of $12,000 per year in cash flow, you're now making $15,000, and you've also accumulated an extra $37,000 loan from equity, right? From appreciation going up and the tenant paying down the loan for you. After year 15, you're making a $23,000 per year in cash flow, and you've also accumulated an extra $132,000 from the property going up in value and from the tenant paying down your loan. And then after year 31, of course, most mortgages, are paid off after 30 years. In this situation, you own a $400,000 house free and clear. You could sell it, or you could just keep collecting cash with no mortgage. If you kept collecting cash, that would be about $49,000 per year in cash flow and an extra $368,000 just from one rental property alone. And so, of course, the goal is not just to own one property, but don't get too hung up on the amount to invest in 34 grand and all that stuff. I just want you to, again, get the full idea. In this situation, you invested $34,000 one time. After the setup and purchase, you have a property manager that's doing 99% of all of the work. In 31 years, you own a $400,000 home that's paid in full, that's paying you $50,000 a year in profit. And again, this is only one house. Imagine if you had 10 similar properties, you'd have over $4 million in paid off real estate paying you $500,000 a year, plus all the cash flow that you have taken in over the course of those 30 years as well, right? So the opportunities with real estate can truly be immense if done correctly. And so that's kind of a way to go through deals and understand real estate in order to build up financial freedom through that route. The last route, stocks, real estate, and the last one is business, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be online business, but that is one type of business. And so when we talk about business, with stocks, it was about building up an amount, right? And getting to a certain value. With real estate, it was about building up a number of properties and cash flow. With online business, it's really about building up, enough revenue from the business in order to pay off all your business expenses, all your personal expenses, and have some sort of buffer there in between so you're not cutting it too close. And also ideally having some sort of scalable plan so that you can continue to grow the business as your lifestyle may increase over time, right? So I think I pretty much said that, but the goal is to replace your revenue from your job with a scalable business or online business so that you can quit and focus on what you love and have time, work, and location freedom. So for some people, they might say, well, I don't want to wait 20 years or 30 years for stocks, or I don't want to get involved in real estate. What I really want to do is just focus on doing what I love every day and learn how to maybe monetize that, right? And so for some people, entrepreneurship can be a route to do that. It comes with its own pros and cons and risks, but it is something that is very possible. And some examples, these are all friends of mine. Daniel, he built up a lot. He was really good at making videos, editing, things like that. So he started on YouTube, and then he started making TikToks about personal finance related stuff. He doesn't coach or anything like that, but he just basically builds up a huge following, and then brands pay him basically to promote from his page, and he makes tens of thousands of dollars a month, I think. He's one of the bigger accounts doing it, but he makes tens of thousands of dollars a month doing that, which is, crazy, right? It all started from just picking something out like that and understanding that it's possible and listening to other people that had already done it. Kat is another friend of mine. She sells Excel courses online, which I didn't realize I know Excel is probably the number one program in the world, but I didn't realize people were loved it enough to join courses and programs about it. But she does really well doing that, and she was able to walk away from her job. I have a friend, Stephanie, who has an account where she used to travel and do reviews, and it turned into this travel blog thing. And then now hotels and different companies pay her to write reviews or visit their hotel or things like that. And so a lot of these come from building up an audience, which is one way of building an online business. It's not the only way. And then Haley is an interesting one that really built a subscription-based business, which I think is really crazy. She was a realtor, hated being a realtor. But what was she good at, right? So I think this is something, if you guys are interested in owning a business, this is the most powerful way to start a business, and the easiest way to start a business is go about your day, see what you were good at, see what you like doing, see what people ask you for help with, and see, is there a way that you could potentially focus on that or monetize that outside of your job, right? So for her, your situation might not look like this, but what she decided to do was she hated being a realtor, but she was really good at making social media templates and things like that for realtors. And she understood that people kept asking her every single day, hey, can you help me with my social media? Because now as a real estate agent, one, that's probably the number one quantity-wise job in the country. As far as there's probably more people doing that than anything else, or I would say it's at least top 10. There's a lot of realtors, obviously, in every city, right? And so what she did is she started creating templates and not coaching programs, but she built a community where basically you can pay $30, $40 a month. And what they do is they give you the latest trends. They give you the latest sounds. They give you the latest, they do templates for you. They write captions for you. They do hashtag research for you, right? And they send it to you all in a monthly packet to where it's all pretty much done for you so that you can focus as a realtor on selling homes, right? And so now, I think it's $40 a month, and she's got legitimately thousands of people that pay her $40 a month, right? So she's making at least $100,000 a month, probably more, right? And so just to kind of show you, she was a realtor 3 years ago, had no business at all, right? And now she's making millions of dollars a year. And that's an extreme example. Of course, you don't need necessarily millions of dollars a year to quit your job, but just kind of cool ways of being creative with what you're good at or what you could potentially monetize. So an example, when do you quit your job is kind of the question I always get. If your expenses are $4,000 per month, I'd want to see that you're making well in excess of that per month. Like $8,000 would be like a decent example. I'd want you to see that you did it for at least 6 months in a row to make sure it's not a fluke, make sure it's not a up and down type thing. I'd want to see that you have at least 6 months of emergency savings saved up in case something does go wrong, to where you have a little bit of time to hopefully work it out. And then also I want to make sure that's future proof, which, you're not getting in the newspaper business, so to speak. And also that you have a plan to scale it, right? Because if you're making $8,000 per month, that's great. You're outpacing your expenses. You're living your life. You're doing what you love on a daily basis, but maybe your lifestyle inflates over time a little bit, or maybe inflation just catches up with it, right? So you want to make sure that you can continue to grow your revenue over the course of time. So figuring out those things is what I would say with online business. And so now the question is, which fits you best, right? And so we talked about this, but the difference between stocks, business, and real estate, stocks, and you can do a multitude of these, right? But I'm just splitting them up, is stocks is going to usually take you the longest. Why? Because it's hands off. The returns are pretty much fixed. You don't really have much control over it. But the pros of it are that little to no time is required. Once you learn how to build a proper portfolio, it's really just about going to work, doing your job, setting up automated investments, and letting the stock market do its thing. Again, I put $3,000 to $4,000 a month, but you can invest with as little as $1. But if you want to, we're talking about retiring in 5-10 years, something like that. It's usually going to be in that $3,000 to $4,000 per month range, or maybe even a little bit higher, if you're doing it solely through the stock market. But again, that's something that you work your way up to regardless. So don't think like, oh, that's what you need to be doing. Like, regardless of when you plan to retire, maybe you plan on retiring in 45 years, right? And you can only invest $300 a month or $200 a month or $100 a month, whatever, right? And the goal is to continue to up that investment amount so that the number of years it takes you to get there keeps getting less and less and less as well. Likelihood of achievement, I say highly likely, because like I said, as long as you're automating investments and you have a long-term time horizon, it's really just about waiting. Real estate, I think you can get there a lot quicker, but there's more time required. There's more work required, which adds a layer of effort and risk. And then, as far as financial investment, it just really depends on what strategy you pick and what down payment that might require. Business, depending on the type of business, usually has almost no startup costs, especially if it's something that's online or digital. There's very little, if at all. Time to retire, it could take you a year, could take you 2 years, could take you 10 years, right? You could not retire at all, right? And that's the biggest thing with business as opposed to these other ones, is that it's going to require maximum amount of time, effort, and usually depending on what it is, and it's going to require a lot of work, right? But what that allows you, right, the biggest cons give you usually the biggest pros, where if done correctly, it can be done a lot faster, right? So that is financial independence, right? We're talking about getting our money working, investing through stocks, business, or real estate. And even if you do quit your business, or even if you do quit your job to focus on your business, eventually the money has to go into something that is not you, right? So that you can eventually retire. But again, some people want that quicker. I want to get out of my job. I don't really care about retiring, but I want to get out of my job and focus on a business that I love. Some people are down that path, right? So if you go down that path, it's about continuing to invest outside of it so that eventually you retire, right? So I want to ask you guys a question. I know we've gone over a lot, but have you guys gotten value? Did you guys feel like, we went over a ton of stuff. Do you guys feel like you got a ton of valuable information as opposed to what we went over with, stocks and real estate and business and looking at deals and looking at numbers? Do you guys feel like you got a lot of value out of what we already went over so far? Go ahead and let me know in the chat. Cool. Yeah. So we got some yeses in there. So again, do you see how retiring at 65 no longer seems normal? And that, these are rhetorical, how creating financial freedom can only be a 5 to 10 year process, or by employing a few strategies, you could be saving more, investing more, and building serious wealth and freedom fast. And when you take action and stay consistent, like we talked about, it's possible for people with no previous financial knowledge to get big results fast, right? So some questions you might still have is, how do you create a system that is going to get you there, right? Like all the like specific how-tos as far as details on what options are available, how to build a spending plan. Should you pay off debt? Should you save? Should you invest? Should you, what are the, how do you navigate the job market to get the highest and best paying jobs? How do you land your dream money or dream job? How do you maximize your benefits? How do you buy a primary home or long-term rentals? Should you buy short-term rentals? How do you buy, how do I pay less in taxes? How do I get higher paying jobs? How do I decide what investments are right for me? What account should I be investing in? 401k, Roth IRA? How do I build that portfolio for long-term success? How do I automate my investing and avoid wealth damaging fees? What should I be doing every week and month to monitor and help grow my wealth so I can stay consistent? And then, some people, what kind of business should I start and how do I turn it into a profitable and scalable business so I can walk away from my job? So those are all questions, right? When it comes to helping build that system from figuring out what you want, figuring out where you are right now, understanding debt, credit, and savings, raising your income, lowering your expenses, and getting your money working for you in stocks, real estate, and business so that you can retire really as soon as possible. And so there's two main ways that you can figure out those things. One is the long way, which is the way I did it. Unfortunately, I was the guy that's like, I can Google everything, I can YouTube everything for the most part, which I did it like this for a long time until I kind of wised up. But I read hundreds of books, which actually cost me thousands of dollars, to read all those books and stuff like that. And the cost of that is I spent thousands of dollars and really thousands of hours basically going through non-productive trial and error when I could have gone to, somebody that knew what they were doing instead of trying to do what I thought was the cheaper way, but it actually ended up costing me a lot more time and effort the other way that I thought was going to cause me less time and effort. I was looking for what everyone else was doing instead of what plan fit me. I didn't have anyone actually to go to when I got confused in the beginning. And I basically had to learn the hard way through basically making mistakes and losing money since I didn't have a mentor, well-organized program, or a group of like-minded individuals and things like we've talked about tonight. So if I could do it all over again, I think I could probably even get there sooner. But what I would change, what do I wish I had, which we already talked about, a mentor that's already gotten to where I've gotten to that I can actually talk to so that when obstacles come up or I don't understand something, I can help them or they can help me guide me to my plan. I wish I had like a chronological curriculum of everything I needed to know instead of just like reading random books and random YouTube videos and following random accounts and just trying to piece together all this information, but it's all conflicting. And I don't know, Dave Ramsey says, pay off all debt. And this guy says, don't pay off any debt at all. And how do I wish I just had one streamlined, organized curriculum. I wish I would have had more people that were on the same journey as me. A lot of my friends, I still love them. They're still my friends, but they didn't want to talk about any of this stuff, right? So having like-minded individuals is something that's very important. I wish I had access just to more people that were, in the money game, right? CPAs, Airbnb investors, recruiters, HR people, right? Stock market investors, real estate investors. And I really just wish I had a shortcut to gaining all that information I needed to build a tailored plan that fits me so I don't have to waste any more time than I needed. So for all of you, I know some of you guys talked about options, stuff like that. For those of you that are interested in maybe taking that short path, let me know in the chat real quick. Just throw a yes in there real quick. If it's all right if I take maybe like 2 minutes and just explain some options for you guys of some things that you guys can do there and some things that I offer. And then we'll get to the Q&A shortly after that. Okay, Becky said, yeah, I'll go over that real quick and then we'll get to the questions and answers there at the end, all the free gifts and stuff like that. So you guys are probably aware that I have a masterclass. I'm not sure if you've heard a lot about it, but basically I built this to help you reach financial freedom faster, easier, and less expensively than it would take you on your own. And again, this is really everything that I've done over the last 8 or 9 years that, again, helped me build a $1.5 million net worth, helped me retire at 28 years old, and help give me financial freedom and quit my job so that I can chase my passions and really live out my life around what I want it to look like, right? So in this masterclass, what do you learn? You're getting clarity exactly on where you want, on what you want and where you are now, and building a blueprint to help you get to where you're trying to go. So we're going to go over how to save $5,000 to $10,000 a year from a proper budget, how to make $100,000 to $250,000 or more per year through multiple income sources, We talk about how to take that extra cash flow and how do you invest that exactly what to buy when it comes to stocks, real estate, Airbnb, whatever it is that you want to learn or whatever it is that you want to invest in. We talk about exactly how to use that in its best way to get you to where you're trying to get to faster. We also talk about how much should you have in savings? Should you pay off debt? Should you invest? How do you build that credit score like you were talking about earlier? How do you navigate the job market like Brianna was talking about to land the highest paying jobs in the highest paying industries? I bring in tax professionals. I bring in Airbnb investors. I bring in HR consultants. I bring in talent acquisition directors to talk to us about resumes and LinkedIn. So I bring in all those people as well. We go over short-term rentals, long-term rentals, fix and flip, buying real estate out of your area. We talk about stocks, 401k, IRA, brokerage accounts, building portfolios. And then we go over how to build a business if that's something you want to do as well. So by the end of it, what you have is a tailored action plan and blueprint of where you want to go, right? So who is this for? It's really for anybody at any level. We have people that are young, old. We have people that are making $30,000 a year. We have people that are doctors making $350,000 a year, right? We've got people with no properties, people with 5 properties, right? So it's really anybody who just wants to learn more and expedite their path of reaching financial freedom at an early age, right? And so I really built this to maximize the likelihood of people achieving early financial freedom. And so this is a lot different than a typical course, right? I don't even want to call it a course. It's more of an experience. I do 10 modules, and I'll show you the calendar in a second. But as you can see here on the right, the person said, what's your favorite part about the course? They said the live session, because your passion comes through, and I can tell that you truly put everything into this course to help people. That alone is inspiring. So we're going to have 15 sessions. They're all live, but they're also recorded, so you don't have to show up live if you don't want to or if you can't. Usually it's about 50-50. Either way works. But some people like showing up live. It helps them be more accountable. And then I'm also there in every single class live with you to answer any questions that you have for the entirety of the masterclass. You also get lifetime access to be able to access the material that's in there, because some of it's going to come up now. Some of it might come up later in your life. So you get full access to that. And then all these other things I've added in to make sure it even more give you a higher likelihood of achieving financial freedom. The first one is small group office hours, right? So every single week, we'll have 2 classes, then I'll have 1 office hours, which is 2 hours where I sit on my computer and I wait for you guys to come in and ask your questions. So you might come in and say, hey, this is what we were going over in the class this week. I don't really understand this. Can you explain it to me? Or, hey, I don't understand how this applies to my situation. Or, hey, this is something I'm stuck with in my life and my finances. Hey, I've got a big decision coming up about XYZ. Can you help me through this? And so it's really like my way of giving you one-on-one help through the entirety of the course. And so those office hours, there's usually very few people in them, which is even better for you because you get more time one-on-one to ask your questions to make sure, because the thing I hate the most about books, even if you read a book by Dave Ramsey, you can't call Dave Ramsey, right? Unless you get him on his radio show. You can't get on a video call with him. He's not going to spend 2 hours with you, right? So I'm like, how do I give these people every possible reason to succeed? There's also a private Facebook group that we'll have to help keep you accountable. You can ask me questions in there. You can meet other people in there. We're going to be, we usually do introductions and stuff like that and get everyone to know one another. And then we also do private lives. So we'll bring on, my wife does one of them. She's been in talent acquisition for 9 years. She'll talk about how to land the highest paying jobs. She'll redo your resume if you want, help you look at your LinkedIn, help negotiate higher benefits. We bring on an Airbnb investor. We bring on a CPA, and a few others as well. So the calendar looks like this, right? And again, I want you to understand that you don't necessarily have to be there every night, but these are when we record it live, and then it's immediately uploaded so you can watch later that night or throughout the week. Some people watch them the next day. Some people watch them on the weekend, right? But there's some open days in there to give you time. And then there's also office hours in there as well. And if for whatever reason, I try to do the office hours around lunchtime, but if for whatever reason you feel like you can't make them, or we need to do one on the weekend, this course is for you guys, right? This masterclass is for you guys. So whatever I need to do that, I'll move things around, and I have done that in the past to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to feel like, I mean, if anything, you're going to probably be sick of me by the end of it. But if for whatever reason you're like, I need more help with this or that, I'll do anything and everything within my power to make sure that everybody gets that opportunity to do that. So we go over introduction to financial freedom, figuring out where you are now, what metrics you need to track, building your spending plan, raising your income, navigating the job market, understanding debt, credit, and savings, and then building a stock portfolio. We go over that 2 nights in a row with a session by a CPA in between there. We go over investing in real estate, investing in Airbnbs, how to start a side hustle and or build an online business to 6 figures and beyond, and office hours as well, right? So as you can see, it truly is everything from A to Z when it comes to building financial freedom. So what is the total value? The total value is really hard to say because there's people that have, a lady in the last masterclass ended up saving $16,000 last year, right? So for her, the value was at least $16,000. But not only do you learn how to save money, but you learn how to make more money, and then you learn how to invest more money, right? And so $1,000 turns into $5,000, turns into $100,000 over the course of time by learning how to save more, make more, invest more. And so is it worth $5,000? Again, these are examples of people that have taken the masterclass in the last few months. Fuad ended up getting a job offer $40,000 higher from the stuff in the raising the income section and working with my wife on helping him get a new job. Michael bought his first rental property, increased his cash flow by $6,000. He's like, Tyler's course helped me take action. Valeria is someone that, started off small, kind of from nothing, and she already doubled her savings rate, and she's invested that. She's built up her emergency fund, built up her investments. And this is my favorite one, even though it doesn't have necessarily to do with actual dollar amounts. Jalen is somebody that took a finance degree and had a master's in finance. And she said, what is this masterclass's core value in dollars? Invaluable. Why? Because it's all the information and tools you need to be successful in personal finance bundled up into a 5-week masterclass, right? So you're getting your dream outcome, right? And you're getting the highest likelihood of possibly achieving it because I'm going to be there with you step by step the entire way. And you're also getting it in the shortest amount of time possible, right? I'm not making you do this for 8 months to learn what I can teach you in 5 weeks, right? So you're getting it faster, and you're also getting it with the least amount of effort possible, right? All you got to do is show up, right? Do the homework and take action, right? There's nothing really crazy that's required of you. But she said the bachelor in business and master of finance degrees I earned cost a lot more, like $70,000 she probably spent on that, and didn't even teach the details and actionable content about personal finance. So basically, like I said, you will start making more money, saving more money, investing more money, and buying back your freedom by the decade. The average person there takes 15 to 20 years off their retirement, I would say, right? Some could be more, some could be less, depending on where they're at. And that's going to give you clarity, right, around a clear blueprint and plan of what is your path, because each path of each one of you guys here that join is going to be different. And most importantly, it will give you back your time to spend creating the life you've always dreamt of. And so you might say, okay, yeah, I see the value. So what is the price? So the price is actually only $497 because I don't want price to be the reason why you don't jump in on this, right? I don't want that to be the reason why you don't get to experience this. And I told you guys I would have some bonuses for you guys tonight. One is that tonight is $100 off for tonight only. Plus, I'm also adding in my real estate course, which is 6 hours. It's normally $200 itself. And for everybody that signs up tonight, you'll also be getting that real estate course for free. And I wish that was it, but there's actually one more big one that I've never, ever offered before. And I don't know if I'm ever going to do this again, just because it might take too much time. But I'm also going to be offering a one-on-one session with you guys during the first week or first or second week, depending on how many people sign up, whatever we can fit into the schedule. And I've never offered this before, but this is going to be an opportunity for me to talk with you on the phone, 30 minutes, an hour, as far as what's going on in your situation. What problems are you having? Where do I think you should focus more of your attention on the masterclass? What are some things that you can be doing right now to saving, making, investing thousands of more dollars? And so I used to charge people $300-400 for an hour phone call, and people would pay it, and they'd be happy to pay it because they knew they were going to get more out of it than what they put in. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to do those now, just with the way the account's grown. But I want to offer that as for you guys here tonight. Again, this is something I'm not going to regret it because I love doing them, but I might regret the amount of time that it takes. But, I'm really excited to get to know you guys more. And I think this is a great way to do it for you guys that are serious and kind of taking that next step. So due to the amount of time that it does take, I am limiting that to the first 10 people to sign up tonight, just due to the time constraints on my schedule. And so we'll start with that and kind of see what we can do there. So not only are you guys getting $100 off, not only are you guys getting, the masterclass and the workbooks and the office hours and the guest speakers, but you're also getting the real estate course, and you're also getting the one-on-one strategy session. So before we go into the Q&A, a couple of things. I do offer payment plans. So it's 4 payments of $99 a month, which is less than you spend on probably a night out at dinner these days, or you can break it up into 2 payments or 1 payments. And the biggest thing is that I offer a 100% money back guarantee. I don't think anybody else that I've seen offers that. And the reason why they don't offer it is because they're scared people are going to take them up on it. I've had 700 people take my masterclass. 0 people have ever asked for their money back. Why? Because they know that the promise that I give them is you're either going to get 10 times as much value as what you paid, or I'm going to give you I'll give you every single dollar back, right? So your best case scenario is that you end up with, enough knowledge to take you into hundreds and thousands and becoming a millionaire over the course of time. The worst case scenario is you end up with that same information and all of your money back, right? So there really is no worst case scenario. So that's something that I offer for any reason whatsoever. I don't really need a reason. Of course, I'll be curious if there's something that can be improved, but I offer a money back guarantee. So before we get in the Q&A, I know some of you guys might be sitting on the fence. And again, if you join, great. If you don't join, still love you. Still hope you follow me and get a lot out of it. But I know some people are sitting on the fence. Some people are kind of waiting for a push. Some people are waiting for a sign. And this is the way that I look at it, is that at this point, you've got two options, right? We'll simplify it. You can basically wait and say, well, the timing's not right, or May's a little busy for me, or, hey, like maybe I'll do this down the road, or once I graduate, or this or that. And yeah, you'll save, whatever it is, the $397. But what you're going to do is you're going to end up trying to figure it out on your own, like I did in that beginning. And I've already done it. You're going to sacrifice hundreds of hours, and you're actually going to spend thousands of dollars over time figuring it out and making mistakes, when you can just, basically outsource my mistakes and my successes as of what I've already done, to where I can help you get to where you're trying to get to a lot faster. Your other option is you invest in yourself and start moving towards your dream life today. Imagine by the end of this month, by the end of May, you're able to know 100% of everything that you need to know in order to be financially free, right? You feel clear, you feel confident, you feel happy, right? You feel prideful about your life and your direction, and you don't have to worry about what am I supposed to do. You have the plan, you have the blueprint. We've built it together, you and I. All you got to do now is just act, right? And like I said, for any reason, if you feel like you didn't get way more value than you paid, then you get 100% of your money back. So if you're ready to take control of your financial life, I'll put that link in the chat as well. If you're going to be joining, I'd throw a freedom in the chat. I would love to know who's joining. I'd love to welcome you into the group, and that way I can also make sure that you get into the one-on-one strategy session and all that kind of stuff. So what you're going to do is just go to Defining Wealth, definingwealthonline.com, and I'll try to put this in the chat for us as well here. Right. If you guys can let me know if that link works, and then I'll go on the free gifts and I'll answer the questions that I know you guys have in here. But yeah, go ahead and throw freedom in the chat if you guys are going to be joining. I would love to have you guys. Again, we'll kind of go back to the calendar here real quick. Let me know if you guys can click that link and make sure that it works. Just because sometimes in Zoom, the chat, for whatever reason, it doesn't, the link doesn't work. But again, I would love to have you guys in here. I was working with a couple today, and they joined the upcoming masterclass. I spoke to them for an hour on the phone today. And that's really the difference is, a lot of these courses, you guys don't know me, right? You guys might think, oh, well, it's just like any other course, and the guy just wants to make money and this and that. And that's truly not how I look at this. How I look at this is, my reputation is on the line every single day. And when people entrust their hard-earned money with me, I take it very personally, take it very seriously. And today I had somebody that joined the masterclass for May, and I spoke with him on the phone, him and the woman and her husband for an hour today, right? We talked about their jobs. We talked about budgeting. We talked about, their plan. We talked about real estate. We talked about a couple of rental properties they had on their mind, right? And we worked through things where in that 1 hour alone, they said, yeah, like, I feel like this was a $10,000 phone call, right? Just from the things they got worked around, because the issue you have about doing it yourself is you're smart enough to figure it out, right? I have no doubt that you guys are smart enough to figure out. The issue is it's just going to take you a lot longer. And the other issue is when you have somebody that, if you're trying to, the hardest person for me to give advice to is myself, right? Because I'm emotionally attached to all my decisions. I have fear and anxiety like any other human being. And so it can be tough for me to see clearly. And so sometimes you need a mentor, like all you guys had said. A lot of you guys had said in here that you want to, you need a mentor and you need help with budgeting and you need help with, finding. I mean, when Brianna was talking about the difference of, finding a being on the job market, that right there is, you do that incorrectly. That's a $5, $10, $15, $20,000 miss, right? In maybe getting a better job. We talk about real estate, like Becky was talking about, buying the wrong rental property, not to scare you, but buying the wrong rental property is a $100,000 mistake. It could be, right? Depending on what it is and what the mistake is. And so just having somebody there to do it with you, just helps you just gain so much clarity and confidence around what you're doing. So I hope you guys will join. I can't wait to get you guys set up with a strategy session too. That way I can get to know you one-on-one, face-to-face. And again, I'll keep this here for you guys. If you guys want to DM me the word ebook and DM me the word calculator on Instagram, and what I would do is, it will send you my ebook and send you my rental property deal calculator. That way you guys have those free gifts I promised you guys for showing up. So DM me the word ebook on Instagram, hit enter, and then DM me the word calculator. You can do it without the quotations, and I will send you that. So we'll go into the Q&A here. Becky said, I'm going on vacation for almost 2 weeks at the end of May, and I want to do this. Is there any way I can do this in June, or should I just go ahead and sign up? Becky, to be honest with you right now, the masterclass, the way it's set up is it takes an incredible amount of time for me to do, just because it doesn't take an incredible amount of time, but I have a lot of other things going on, right? And so adding that in there, especially, I could have just made this a course, right? Where everybody just watches it on their own time. That would have saved me 20, 30 hours, right? But again, I wanted people to get the most out of it. And I felt like me being there for the people that at least want that would be beneficial as well. And the point of me bringing this up is I don't think I'm going to do this again, right? I think I'm going to move to some sort of different model to where either the price goes way up so that there's going to be less people, to where I can focus more maybe one-on-one with people, but the price is going to be way, way, way higher, or it's going to be something where I don't maybe offer the live moving forward because of the amount of time that it does take up, right? Just because my life's changing, the business is changing a lot. And so I think that this offer, the way it is the absolute most, especially with the one-on-one session, is worth tens of thousands of dollars, to be honest with you, as long as you get in, do the work, be consistent. So my answer to your question would be join now, because I don't know if I'm going to do it again. And I would hate to tell you that, hey, just sign up for the next one, and there isn't a next one. And then, you're like, hey, what the heck, dude? And, then you'd be mad at me. Right. And so for now, I can at least tell you, hey, I might not do it again. And also what I would recommend is, even if you take a break for 2 weeks or whatever during the class, maybe keep up with what you can, right? Or maybe just pop into the office hours, take advantage of those. Maybe just pop into a little bit here and there, do whatever you can. But regardless, even if you do nothing during those 2 weeks, everything's recorded and uploaded, and you easily be able to pick back up where you left off and hop back in with what we're doing, right? And so you'll be able to email me. You'll be able to go into office hours and talk to me. You'll be able to talk to me in the live classes. Again, each class is only maybe an hour and a half, depending on how many questions are asked. So what I would do is just go ahead and join. That way you can catch up, in a weekend or two as well. So yeah. And so I wanted to, sometimes people, I know there's a lot in this offer, which it's good, all good stuff, but just a little bit different, right? So it is a 5-week live masterclass. So each class is live. but it's immediately recorded everything, the guest speakers, the office hours, the classes, everything from A to Z is recorded and immediately uploaded to Thinkific. Thinkific is a website that I use to host the course. It'll look a little bit different than this for you guys, but it will look something like this, where you'll have, this is kind of the welcome page, right? And then you'll download your workbook for the first part, right? And then you'll download, so there'll be workbooks and stuff to go along with it. And then there will actually be, this is the one from March, right? This one has videos because we've already done the March one, obviously. So you'll be able to go in here, just click on here and immediately start watching the video, right? So you can go to where we got started, right? And you can turn up the speed where I sound like a chipmunk, even if you want. That makes me want to vomit. And that it's always weird hearing yourself, but then hearing yourself 2 times is not fun. Sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks. But it's all very easy for you to go in there, immediately catch up with, the Google Forms, and in the class, I explain what the homework is and all that kind of stuff. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to keep up with that as well. So your lifetime access, the office hours again are in there as well. You have the access to the private Facebook group for life. We keep up with, past students and things like that. I'm still talking to past students every day. 5 private lives with guest speakers and industry professionals, right? Like I said, CPA, guest speakers, all that kind of stuff will be in there as well. So I'll leave up that last page as well. If you guys have any questions, please throw them in the Q&A now or in the chat. Probably in the Q&A would be better about anything. I'll go back through the link or the chat. I know there were some questions I'll try to find in there. If you have any questions about the course, throw them in the Q&A. If you have any questions about anything else, and I'll take a second now to answer those. But make sure to message me on Instagram, ebook and calculator. And also, if you're joining, make sure to either throw freedom in the chat or message me on Instagram. I would love to know and just welcome you into the class. So we got, and again, if you guys are here, at this point, I know we got Allie, Angel, Becky, Brianna, Corinne, Freddie, Jacob, Jake, Kate, Chris, Leo, Maria, and Steven. Again, like I said, whether you guys join or not, totally cool. I'm just honestly grateful and blessed that you guys decided to come here tonight and invest in yourself, even though there wasn't a financial investment to be here. You guys took time when most people are, there's nothing wrong with Netflix right here and there, but most people are at home watching Netflix. You guys are here investing in you and your family's future. So either way, appreciate you being here. I would really love to get to know you guys better and help you guys reach your goals. I know that if you guys are here at this point, right, and you're one of the last, 14, 15 people here, it's been about an hour and a half when I told you it was going to be 45 minutes because I thought it was going to be. That means that you have maybe a pain, right, of some sort. There's something that you want to fix. You've been looking for an answer. Maybe you have nowhere, you have nowhere to, you have no idea where to go, no idea where to start. Or maybe you've started, but you've started running into some roadblocks and you have no idea how to kind of maybe expedite your journey or get there a little bit faster. And so I would say if you're one of those people, this is who I built that for, to help you go from the level you're at to 5 levels higher in 5 weeks. And I would love to get to know you guys, meet you guys, and do that inside the course to where we're able to help, you and your family get to where you're trying to get to. And like I said, above all, I'm giving you guys, I tell people, I give people 2 things. I give them the information they need to know to be successful, and I give them the inspiration they need to know to be successful. And we talked about that a little bit earlier, and again, the biggest thing that I think that is missing from the human population, especially people that are maybe not where they want to be, whether it's financially or elsewhere, is hope, right? And the only reason why you wouldn't have hope is if you don't know how it's possible, because once you know how it's possible, it's very easy to take action, right? Because you know how you're going to get there, right? So you don't feel like you're wasting your time. And so that's what we go over in the class, is the ability to talk about the how, to give you guys hope. So I feel like, I hope, regardless right now, that you guys at least have hope and you understand that, maybe we broke down some mental barriers as to what you thought is possible. And I really hope that you guys, kind of take that, get off the fence, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you to jump, because like I talked about earlier, you've got two ways of doing it. The best case scenario is that you come in, you take action, and it changes your life forever. The worst case scenario, I would say that it's if you get in and you don't like it. But if you get in and you don't like it, which 0 out of 700 people have, you get your money back, right? So that's not really a worst case scenario. The worst case scenario, and this is the worst case scenario of life in general, is the unknown. What could have happened, right? What could have been. And I tell people all the time, not to scare people, but it's the truth, right? A lot of people are someone right here listening right now is going to decide, well, I'll do this next week. I'll do this next year. I'll do this next month. I'll do whatever, right? And that person may or may not ever do it, right? And they're going to have to live with the fact that in a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, Becky or somebody else says, hey, well, I was thinking about not doing it, but you know what? I took that leap of faith. I took that leap of hope. And guess what? 3 years later, now I'm in a really incredible situation that's much better than the situation I was in. And the person that didn't make that jump is going to have to level with themselves and kind of come to terms with it, right? And it's not to be rude, or like I said, either way, people are make their decision, and we're all adults. And I hope that you guys do the best thing for you, whether that's joining or not joining. But again, I know there's a lot of people that sit on the edge, and they need to kind of think about things through and make sure that something is the right thing for them. And some people just need that push, right? So if you need that push, consider this that push. And yeah, let's get into these questions. So Freddie, welcome, man. Glad to have you. We'll get that one-on-one set up. Angel, I put the sign up link in the chat. If you guys can see that there. Angel, let me know if you can see that in the chat. I just put it in there. So what you'll do is you'll click on that. You'll go to, so that's the front page of the website. This one is a little bit better. It takes you directly to it. And so you guys, all this is really just what I've talked about, what's in the course. You can read all the testimonials. I know I gave you a few of them, but there's, I really have hundreds of these things, honestly, but you can read those if you like, or if there's any other questions you might have, the calendar, all that stuff. Once you're ready, all you gotta do is click this green button or this green button, right? And I'd love to have you guys in there. And what you do is you just go down to the bottom here, and you'll just click on, do you want to split it up into 4 payments, 2 payments, 1 payment, whatever you want to do, whatever's best for you. Angel, let me know that you see that link in the chat, just so, because I did technically give you the wrong link, I guess, originally. So let me know that you see that. And then we'll get back to these questions. I got it now. Cool. Awesome. Well, glad to hopefully have you in there. Freddie, welcome. Jacob, Chris, Leo, Maria, Steven, Allie, Angel, Becky, Brianna. Love to have you all guys in there as well. So looks like there's one question, not the Q&A. If you guys have questions in the Q&A, please throw them in there. And I saw some ones up here. So Allie said, would it be unadvised to take $12,000 out of a 401k to invest in an asset that could produce $750 per month, or better to keep it in a 401k? I'm just reading what Chris wrote. Yeah. And I guess Chris you can't see Chris's comment because he put it to hosts and panels, which is fine. But I'll say it depends, right? It depends on what that asset is. If there's assets that create $750 a month in cash flow out of that, absolutely, right? It depends on what the asset is, right? What the quantitative and qualitative factors of that asset are. And then, again, taking money out of a 401k comes with its own implications. If you're taking it out of a 401k from like cash, like liquidating, you're gonna have to pay penalties and all that stuff, penalties and probably taxes too, depending on what kind of 401k investment it is. So that's going to take a lot of money out of that $12,000, which is usually not advisable. Basically, my rule, a lot of people take money out of 401ks, but my general rule is if you don't if you think you might want to take it out of there for some other asset or whatever, don't put it in there to begin with, right? Which doesn't mean you shouldn't have 401ks, but it means if you have a 401k, the whole point of a 401k is to keep the money in there so that you can either get tax advantages on the front end or tax advantages on the back end, right? And not have to pay taxes or penalties to take it out early. So, but your options would definitely not be to liquidate it. You could take out a loan against it. I don't know what they'll let you take out a loan on based off of your loan balance and the company that has it, but usually you can take out a loan against it, but you're still making payments on that loan every month, right? So you have to factor in that cost where, if you take out a loan of your 401k, right, you're making a monthly payment to that. So you've got to make sure that whatever cash flow profit that money produces is well in excess of the debt service or the debt payment that you're making at a minimum. Yeah. So yeah, I mean 401k, the penalty is terrible. Just reading some other comments. Yeah, see if there's any. I know there's some other questions. Kate said, do you prefer long-term or short-term rentals? I own long-term rentals. I'd milled around with the idea of short-term rentals, but nothing really came to materialize for me as far as what I was looking for and around the time that I started, and I started focusing more on my business at the time anyways. But we have somebody that comes on that talk about Airbnb, and the differences between Airbnb and long-term rentals are typically more stable. They typically require less work, but the trade-off is that you're typically going to get less cash flow. Airbnbs it's an Airbnb is not a rental property. An Airbnb is a hotel that you run, right? I think that's how you should think about it. A hotel is a business, right? It's very important what the pictures look like. It's very important how the customer service is. It's very important that it's ran like a hotel, and hotels are ran like companies, right? And so not to say that a long-term rental shouldn't have customer service, but short-term rental, you've got new tenants coming in every 2 or 3 days, right? And so, and if you want to get a property manager, it's going to be 20-25%, where with a long-term rental, it's going to be 8-10%, right? So just some differences there. I think it's just really a trade-off between the risk and also the potential cash flow for the deal, stuff like that, right? Brianna, what tips do you have for getting a higher paying job? Is it a red flag to tell an employer you're working towards financial independence? So I don't see a situation where you would have to tell your employer that you're working towards financial independence. I probably wouldn't go around, pushing that information out, right? Just because depending on what kind of company you work for, who your particular boss is, all that kind of stuff. But here's a good way to think about this. Every single human being on earth is working towards financial independence, because that's what retirement is, right? Financial independence is just more the idea of getting there sooner. But I know what you're saying. I wouldn't really tell an employer that you're working towards financial independence. It's something you kind of just do in private. For me, it was odd because I was doing it. I was working, investing in stock market, investing in real estate. And then, I built a business, and I worked at my company for a year and a half while I had Defining Wealth. And I was basically talking about how I was going to quit my job and talking about investing and talking about all this stuff. And so, for me, it's just kind of reading the room, like I didn't talk about it at work. I didn't like when people brought it up. I would ignore a question or walk away. Like some situations, if I need to get out of it, my boss was close. Right. But, it doesn't mean you don't go for it. You got to think, why do people not like it? Why, and isn't that such a selfish reason that they don't like it? They don't like it because they think that you're going to go do something better with your life. Isn't that sad? But that's how the world works. People love you. It's why people root for underdogs. People want you to just, if you're rags, like rags to riches, like if you're like broke and homeless and, on drugs, right? People just want you to just come up and do the best you can and grow, right? And then, but when that homeless person starts making more money than you, then you're like, all right, buddy, like, and that's not how I am, but that's how the world works, right? And you see that probably a lot where you might have friends or colleagues or people where they rooted for you, and then you maybe started passing them, and then all of a sudden, they didn't really like that, right? So just something to kind of think about. Best tips for getting a higher paying job. So in the masterclass, which I think you'd be, especially if you're looking at in that job phase or looking for a better job, this is an incredible place for you to be. So I hope you can join. We actually do a whole night with my wife. My wife's worked in HR, talent acquisition, tech recruiting for almost a decade. And she's a whiz when it comes to resumes, interviewing, networking, LinkedIn. If I didn't already say LinkedIn. And she just, gives so much advice, and she works one-on-one with people that are in the masterclass, and she really, kind of helps people just as much as I do. And so I think that'd be really beneficial for you. But, I think for you and finding the best higher paying job is really finding what type of jobs, doing research on what type of jobs pay what you're looking for, what kind of industries pay what you're looking for, what kind of positions within these industries, within these companies. So you have industries, you have companies, and you have positions, right? So finding industries that pay well, companies that pay well, positions that pay well, right? And then trying to reverse engineer, okay, I've kind of got an idea of what I might like to do, and what I might like to do that's in my price range of jobs that I'm, could see myself doing. Now, what are the things that I need to do to get there? What are the prerequisites to do that, right? It might be this certification or this much experience. And so then you start weighing, okay, well, am I willing to devote 3 to 5 years to do what, I don't know, whatever, like figuring out what that path is. Cause I call it the yellow brick road, for lack of a better term. But a lot of people get into dead end jobs, right? And they're like, I have nowhere to go. And I'm like, the one thing that you should always do when you're looking at job, career, whatever, is you want to get into a high paying job, but you also like want to be able to at least see what the next 3, 5, 10 years would look like in a job. And that's a question you should be asking in an interview. And of course, that requires you to be a good employee and do your job, and a lot of other factors that you don't control, like the market and downsizing and, whatever, right? But you either go into a job knowing that yellow brick road of like, hey, I want a path forward of, hey, I can see that there's job availability up the chain for a promotion or the people that make more money, and that if I do X, Y, and Z, that I can get there, right? And just because that's there doesn't mean that you're going to do that, but it's a lot better than going into a job where there's no yellow brick road and you're basically just staring down the barrel of a dead end job and just waiting to get stuck until you get uncomfortable enough to where you need to leave, right? So I would do the research on the front end of companies, industries, positions, reverse engineer what those things might take to get there. Also look at company culture, things like that. And then the biggest thing is once you've figured out and you've narrowed it down to maybe a few companies, few jobs, right? You go find the people that are doing it. So, hey, a project manager at Google or whatever the job is, whatever the company is, whatever the industry is, and you search these people on LinkedIn and you let them know, hey, I saw your profile. I think it's really awesome what you do. That is literally my dream job. Like to, you kind of want to brown nose them a little bit, right? And you're not being dishonest, you're being genuine, but hey, you're in a position I want to be in. I think that's really awesome. And so you make them feel good about themselves, which is what you want to do to people, right? You want to make them feel good. And it's like, hey, I would love to learn more about kind of maybe how you got there or how you might think would be best for me to get there. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts? Maybe you offer to pay them money to meet. Maybe you offer them to buy them lunch or coffee or whatever, right? Always just be nice. I think that, if you offer to pay someone, they'll just tell you, you don't need to pay me, right? But if you don't offer and they think that you think that their time isn't valuable, right? Then they might not even meet with you at all, right? So just approaching it like that. Same way I tell you guys, hey, if you want to learn about money and you want to become a millionaire and you want to, get on the fast track to do that, you need to go to somebody that's already done it. In this case, me, right? And join the masterclass, because that's the whole point. Now, if you want to look for, if you want your goal, one of your goals is to to get a job, right? Then you need a particular job. You need to go find that person that has done that particular job and go talk to them, because they've already got, just like I have experiences, mistakes, successes, time, effort, experience, right? So do they in their given field, right? So that would be my advice there. And that's a huge part of what we go over in the course as well. Steven just signed up. Awesome, man. Congratulations. I'll send you that link to sign up, or to, for the one-on-one. I'm excited to get to know you. It looks like we got a bunch of people joining. We do have a few spots left for the one-on-one for you guys that are in here. So I'm going to jump back through and see if there's any other questions. I know Angel and Leo put one in here as well. I don't think there's any more in the chat, but we do still have some spots left. We only got a few minutes left. And then, like I said, the all the offers and all that stuff will expire tonight. So Allie, Becky, Brianna, Freddie, Jacob, Chris, I know Leo, Maria, Steven, I know a lot of you guys have already joined, but just wanted to mention that to you guys. The link is in the chat. I'll just put it up there again, just to kind of put it at the top or the bottom. Angel said, best 3 tips to raise my credit score to at least 700 before the end of the year. So good part is you didn't ask me to raise it in the next month. Bad part is 7 months might still be too long. But what I would say is go to annualcreditreport.com, download your free credit report, go to Credit Karma, which is a free app, and download that and look and see what is your credit score and why is that your credit score. And those apps and that annual credit report should give you, it might say, hey, you're this is delinquent, right? So what you might be able to do is you might be able to call those creditors if there's something that you were late on, and they might be able to, I've had late payments I've actually made in the past and they waived them for me, right? Where my credit score, I think it's like 830 or something like now, right? Might be higher than that. And it went from 830 to 700 in like one day because I missed it. Like, I don't know. I don't know if the automated payment didn't work or whatever. And so I called them and I was kind of concerned. And they waived it for me, right? It's funny. Like there's so much that you can actually do as opposed to like freaking out. So calling these people, and sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, but it's worth a try, right? You don't lose anything by doing it. So calling these people, see if there's anything you can do to settle accounts, get things off your credit report, waive late fees, etc. Number 2, obviously more proactively, make sure you pay everything on time. That's the most important thing by far on your credit score. Don't make late payments. Second thing is lower your credit utilization. So find out what your total credit is, which you should be able to do that on Credit Karma. And if your credit utilization is a percentage, right? So if you have $100,000 in credit available, I know which is a lot, but I'm just going to use an example, and you spend $30,000 a month on that credit line, across all your cards or whatever, that means you have a 30,000 divided by 100,000, which is a 30% credit utilization rate. You want to keep that at 30% or below, and the lower the better, right? So if your score is a lot lower than 700, it might be because that utilization rate's too high. So what you can do is get that down as much as possible, and well below 30% if you can. The other thing, get those credit, marks off your report if you can. Make payments on time. A lot of it though is waiting, right? A lot of it's, if you're younger, I know you said you're 23, I think, 22, 23 is your age, right? Like a lot of it's just, it takes time, because the credit score is not a mark of how financially responsible you are. It's how good of a borrower you are, how reliable of a borrower you are, which a lot of that goes hand in hand. But I mean, I know people with 800 credit scores with negative net worths, right? Well, all it means is they can pay their bills on time, right? For the most part. And they've been paying. So when you think about it, they raise your credit score when you pay bills, right? Obviously, they pay it when you pay bills for a long time, right? So if you've had 10 years of credit report history, you're probably going to have a higher score than someone with 2 years. They give you a higher credit score if there's no marks on there. They give you a higher credit score if you have a lower credit utilization score, right? And those are all things we work on in the masterclass as well. So I think that'd be a great option for you, because credit scores alone, especially when you're buying a house or a car, it's funny because like people ask me about the course and I'm like, well, honestly, I'll give you one way, like maybe for you, it's getting that raise or whatever. But I mean, like we were talking about with Fuad. Fuad was a guy that took a course, got a $40,000 raise, also didn't know how to invest, right? So he started making $40,000 more per year, also learned how to invest that. and also learn how to buy real estate, right? So for Fuad, it wasn't just a $40,000 difference, right? It was, and he learned how to raise his credit score, right? So how that all, and sorry, he also, found more money in his budget, right? So for Fuad, the way this all kind of comes together, which is why I teach the way I do, is he's saving more money, he's making more money. Now he knows how to invest it to grow it faster. And then he also learned how to buy real estate, and his credit score was higher. And because his credit score was higher, he got a much lower interest rate on his his mortgage property, and a 1 or 2% difference in rate on a property could be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands in some cases of dollars more that you pay in interest over the course of 30 years, because a mortgage is 30 years, so it's a long time. Plus, mortgage is usually a really high amount, right? Like obviously, you're going to pay more interest on $1 million home than a $300,000 home or whatever. So Maria, have a good night. I know you said you were maybe joining in the future. I know you heard me say we might not do in the future. So hopefully you'll join. If not, regardless, loved having you here. Leo said, how do you feel about wanting to go on the path of starting my own business, but still planning on going to college to study computer science? Would it be worth it? Am I wasting my time with the major? Leo, I think it really just comes down to kind of doing some soul searching, and we'll do that in lesson 1 of the masterclass. Before we even learn anything about money, we learn about you, right? And I think that's one of the differences in what I teach as well is, we're going to spend a lot of time in lesson 1 and in the homework figuring out what are your goals? When are you trying to get there? Why are you trying to get there? What does your dream life look like? And I'll give you some examples, right? I've had people in the past and they're like, hey, I'm a doctor. I'm 1 year away from, I don't know, whatever it is, residency or whatever. I've been in school for the last 6-7 years, and I want to be financially free by the time I'm 30 and I'm 27 years old. And I'm like, well, you probably shouldn't have gone to doctorate school, right? And again, that doesn't mean no one should go to doctorate school, right? What that means is if he came to me and said, I love being a doctor, I want to be a doctor, I want to build money on the side, build wealth on the side, right? Then I'd say, go get your doctor, go be a doctor. Because like the most important thing you do is spend your days doing what you love, right? That's one. But a lot of people don't get to experience that because there might not be a job that does that way, and they might not want to start a business, right? But for that kid, I'm like, well, it's a little too late now, but you probably shouldn't become a doctor because now you have $300,000 in student loans, and then you're trying to like not be a doctor in 3 years anyway. So even if you do go and make money and buy properties, like you probably could have done this a little more efficiently, but maybe he didn't know back then, right? So that's why it's about figuring out where you are right now and trying to make the best decision possible as far as what your path looks like. An example might be, well, and we'll talk about this in the class, but if your class is or your plan, let's say like, hey, I want to be financially free within the next 15 years by the time I'm in my mid 30s, and I like computer science, I enjoy it. It's definitely a place where you can make pretty good money to where I can make XYZ amount of money, which would allow me to invest XYZ per month, and I'm going to be investing in stocks. And so you can kind of reverse engineer how this process works, where it's like, hey, I like computer science and I'm okay with doing it for 15 years. And it would give me enough income to meet my investing goals within the time frames that I'm trying to get there. And you can kind of paint that path, right? So in that situation, right, I'm just giving you a for instance, right? It's up for you to decide that. You might say, okay, this makes sense. Like I'm going to get into computer science, get my degree. It's going to give me something that I know I can make money doing, right? And then if I want to start a business, right, start learning about whatever that is, right? Whatever the business might be. If you have an idea, again, like I always tell people get too caught up in logos and LLCs and business cards and bullshit. I'm like, just go do whatever it is, right? Like, I'll use cutting lawns as an example. If for whatever reason you want to cut lawns, instead of, freaking out, worrying about it and all that stuff and like trying to get a website, just go cut somebody's lawn. Like, see if you can do it, right? Like go door to door and ask people if they need their lawn cut, right? Like then, maybe you get to the point where you're like, all right, I've got 15 people that have me cutting their lawn every week. Like I need to hire somebody or get another lawnmower or like, or hey, I need to like turn this into a more legitimate business, right? But I think too many people try to, like you right now, I would definitely not say, hey, don't go to college, figure out some business and go with that, right? Because you're not there yet. You're not there yet as far as the idea. You're not there yet as far as the business. It doesn't sound like. If this was a situation where you had already built up a business and it was doing a lot of revenue and you enjoyed it more than computer science and you saw a yellow brick road with that entrepreneurship, that would be a different situation, right? So it's all situational. But I think that, go depending on your age and your goals, I would say join the masterclass, and we'll dive into this in lesson 1 and figure out where you want to go. And then from there, again, too many people are trying to, when you get in a car, the first thing you do is you turn your phone on and you put in where you are right now and you put on where you are trying to go. If you did not know those two things, it would be physically impossible to get to where you're trying to get to. Physically impossible. But people try to do that with every aspect of their life that is not driving, right? People are like, I don't really know where I'm trying to get to. I don't really know what I want. I don't really know what my dream life looks like. And I don't know where I'm at right now. I don't know what my budget is. I don't know what my expenses are. I don't know what my cash flow savings rate is, right? And so people come to me and I'm like, where do you want me to help you even get to? And they're like, I don't know. I just want to just do better. I'm like, well, we could do that, right? But that's why in the first class, what we go over is let's look into you and your life and what makes you tick and what do you want your life to look like? Because if I know where you're trying to go and I know where you are now we can build the turn-by-turn directions that are going to get you there in the most efficient way possible, right? So that would be my answer on that. It doesn't look like there's any more questions. If you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those here, but it looks like I did get through all of them. Again, looks like we got a few people left. Becky, Freddie, Jacob, Chris, Leo, Steven. Steven, I know you already joined. Becky, I think you already joined as well. Freddie, you joined. Jacob, Chris, Leo, I'm not sure where you guys are at with it. If you guys have any questions, you can ask them here about the course. If you have any questions, you can ask them. Some people might want to ask them after on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Feel free to ask them there. And again, like I said, even if I hope we don't never talk again, regardless. But again, even if for whatever reason we don't talk again, I appreciate you guys coming out and get to know you guys and helping you dig through some of these things and really coming with some things that you guys can take away tonight. Like you guys, everything that we did tonight for the last 2 hours was 100% free. I hope you guys got a lot out of it, regardless of whether you join the masterclass or not. If you guys are someone that's saying, hey, my last question, I guess, to you, because somebody asked this today. I was talking about, hey, the biggest scam that we're taught is that you're supposed to retire. You're supposed to work 45 years to enjoy your last 10 or 15. And someone said, well, what if you love your job? And I'm like, well, if you love your job or you love what you're doing, I mean, A, you still got to retire at some point. B, good for you. That's awesome. Congratulations. That is the goal. The goal is to be doing what you love doing on a daily basis so that you wake up and you're excited. That is the whole point of life, is to be excited about your life, right? That's, in my opinion, that is the whole point of why we're here. And so my question to that guy who said, well, what if you enjoy your job? Because I get in arguments with people about, they might say, well, we're talking about this problem, whatever this problem is. And they're like, well, what about that one time? Well, there's this little excuse. And I'm like, look at the problem. I'm like, look at the problem, right? The problem is this big. The problem is not the exception, right? It's the rule, right? And the rule is, I want you guys to answer this question. You can answer it rhetorically. If money were no object, right? If you did not need money to live your life, would you be working the job that you're working right now? And I think if you ask that question to the American population, my best guess is that 95 to 98% of people would say no. I would not be working my job if I did not need money, right? And so that question is the end all be all of all questions for me when it comes to financial freedom, right? And getting out of this mindset of your life doesn't have to look like that if you don't want it to. There's nothing necessarily wrong with a job, right? There's nothing wrong with a 9 to 5. I worked a 9 to 5. I told you guys my story. Where there is an issue is if you are doing something that you don't want to do, right? Not what I don't want you to do or what someone else doesn't want you to do or what society doesn't want you to do. There is a problem in your life, in your happiness, and this is where depression comes from most of the time, is when people are not living in alignment with what they want for their life, right? So that's a question for you guys to think about, regardless, and just kind of help you, lead you in the right direction. If your first thought is, yeah, that makes me uncomfortable, right? I'm not doing what I want to do. I do want to change, right? Because I can't help you if you don't want to change, right? If you don't want to change, you don't want to change, right? So we'll shake hands. I'll do whatever I can to help you, but you're not going to take action, right? It's the people that have decided that the pain of staying the same has gotten more than the pain of changing, right? Those people are the people that do the best in the masterclass, because they go, I want to make a change right now. I'm ready, right? I have that hope, I have that drive, and I have that hunger to create a life for myself that's better than the one I'm living now. So if that's you guys, Becky, Freddie, Jacob, Chris, Leo, Steven, would love to have you guys. If you guys have any other questions that come up, you guys know where to find me on Instagram. Make sure to message me ebook or calculator or both on Instagram to get those free tools. And again, it's just been a great time getting to know you guys regardless.